Hello, today I'm going to talk about interpreting, in particular simultaneous interpreting, and some of the elements in simultaneous interpreting which require some attention in terms of theory and a little bit of a practice as well. I'm going to go through some of these elements together with you. Of course, I am actually, in this case, I'm relying mostly on Chernov and his book Anticipation, Probability Analysis as well. That will be the basis of my discussion or talk today. In today's talk, I will be talking about listening and speaking in simultaneous interpreting. Also, I'll be talking about aspects of extreme conditions that are relating to simultaneous interpreting, meaning, sense, simultaneous unit, simultaneous interpreting unit, poses, length of a chunk of chunking, time lagging, simultaneity, types of inferences, components of semantic structure, situation factors, theme and compression, and rime and information density. We'll start with listening and speaking in simultaneous interpreting, and they are two opposing and mutually harassing sides of a single whole. In other words, what this means, it means that you have to be listening as well as speaking in simultaneous interpreting. And if one of them disintegrate, then there is no simultaneous interpreting. In other words, if you are just listening and not speaking, then there is no simultaneous interpreting. Also, if you are speaking, there is no listening, and then or you dropped listening at one part or at one stage, then there is no interpreting as such either. So that is the situation here. So you cannot just listen and say I'm doing simultaneous interpreting, or speaking and you are doing interpreting without listening. So both of them are together. There is no disintegration in between the two. Now, aspects of extreme conditions of simultaneous interpreting. What are the extreme conditions that are in simultaneous interpreting? Of course, there are quite a lot of these difficult situations that you are in. And the most difficult one is the severe time constraint. You have a certain time to actually, and we're talking about seconds and even fragments of or parts of the seconds when you are talking. If you keep quiet for 5-6 seconds, that will be a long time in interpreting. So you have to be careful with that. Also, there is an external control over the pace of your activity when you are doing simultaneous interpreting. In other words, it's the speaker who is actually controlling your pace or having more control over your pace of interpreting. And therefore, it depends on their speed. Of course, you don't have to be as fast as they are. You have to take your own speed, no matter how fast or slow. Of course, if it's slow, it's better, of course, but if the speaker is slower when you are interpreting. So the external control over the pace of simultaneous interpreting activity is important as well, and it is a condition, an extreme condition. Also, the unequal conditions of speech production between the speaker on the one hand and you as an interpreter, because you see your production is based on the speaker's production, and the speaker's production, their conditions are quite different because they are specialized and you are not in the field, and there are many elements that the speaker's got which you don't have, and also there are elements that you have got as an interpreter and they don't have. And this is another element of being aware of in terms of the conditions of simultaneous interpreting. Now, these aspects, which is the severe time constraint, and this is because you're trying to actually transfer the SL message in the discourse into the TL. And there is, of course, the external, as I said, external control over the pace of SI activity, which is quite hard. And there's also the unequal conditions of speech co-production between the speaker and the interpreter. And of course, when the speaker speaks out a prepared text, and that is really a bit more harder for you, because when you are doing the chunking of prepared text, it's different from ad-lib. Ad-lib will be a bit slower, whereas the pre-prepared text will be making it a bit harder for the interpreter to do it as fast as when it is an ad-lib. When it's an ad-lib, it's much easier for the interpreter to be doing that. And that is also what Chernov thinks as well, and which is, I agree totally about that. Now, Chernov talks about two things with regards to when you start about the TL and about the discourse. There's what's called meaning and there's what's called sense. And what is meaning according to Chernov? Let's have a look what they are. What meaning is? Meaning is divided into its components of grammatical component of a word, which is the tense, the aspect, the gender, male, female, feminine, masculine, number, dual, and then case, word class, noun, verbs, diacritics, I and this and here, proforms and proverbs, and word classes, of course, adjectives and nouns, and adverbs and prepositions and conjunctions. And then you have got the other element, which is the semantic components of the word to know its meaning, which are related to synonymy, which is muradifat, i.e. words that are have near meaning to the one that you have, all polysemy, which has got more than one meaning or two meanings to the word, and there where it's more ambiguous, the word for you, and the meaning will be more ambiguous, or which one to choose from in the polysemy. Then you have the lexical component, which is the reference, i.e. the meaning reflects the entity in the real and or imaginary world. So these are the three really basic elements of meaning that are in a word, which is the grammatical, various aspects of the grammatical as we've seen, and also the semantic, which is to do with the synonymy and polysemy, and then lexical, which is what the lexical is really related to the dictionary, and the reference, i.e. the words, the signs, and what do they refer to as entities or people or objects in the real world or in the imaginary world as well. And that is what meaning of a word is when you are starting to look at word and its meaning. And then, of course, you move on to the sense. And in a sense, of course, according to Chernov, sense is the meaning of the word plus cognitive factors, the knowledge of the world around you, plus the communicative situation. And that is what sense is. Sense is the meaning of the word itself, as we've just seen, which with its three elements, which is grammar, syntax, and semantic, lexical. And then you've got the cognitive factors, which is the knowledge of the world and the communicative situation. Here, of course, the situation and the knowledge are quite important, which are extra-linguistic element. And here we are talking about the sense. So the sense is really is more than just the meaning. It's not only the meaning of the word itself, but there are other cognitive factors that are involved, which is the knowledge, the thesaurus that you have of the world around you, and also the knowledge, the background knowledge of the topic that you are talking about, and of course of the communicative situation that you are in. You are in a conference, you are in a forum, you are among participants, the time and the event itself, and the speaker and speakers and so on. All of these altogether are involved in the actually pinpointing the sense when you are actually heading towards the sense, of course, which is what you are doing when you are an interpreter. When you are an interpreter, you're not looking at the word, the meaning of the word only, but you're looking also at the knowledge and also the situation as well, the communicative situation that's going on, the theme, the topic that is being involved in there as well. We will see that in a minute in more details about that as well. But then what is a unit in simultaneous interpreting? Simultaneous interpreting unit is a unit of sense, not unit of meaning. It's a unit of sense, which means that it must be linked to the unit of sense. This is what Chernov is saying here. He's saying that an SI unit must be linked to a unit of sense and to the level at which the SI process is being performed at a given period of time or moment, and that it is also depends on both the performer of the activity, which is the interpreter herself or himself, and on the conditions and the determinant of that performance itself, which is yet another element of that. So all of these together, so in other words, the simultaneous interpreting unit is linked to the unit of sense. And that is very, very, very important, as we will see later, that there is a semantic structure that we are looking at, which is related to the sense more than related to only just the meaning of the word itself. So, and now we just move on to what are the poses. According to Chernov, there are two types of poses which are happening while the speaker is speaking. One of the poses is called Linguistic Pause, which is related to the way the text is done. And there's also another one which is called Hesitancy Pose, which is done by the physiological element of breathing, of the person breathing. So that's these two elements that are done. And usually they range in terms of time between 0.5 of a second, i.e. half a second or a second, and that is the poses that you are looking at in terms of poses. But what about the chunking? When you are chunking means when you are actually taking meaningful units together that make sense together, you take them at one time. Well, according to the Chernov, that he's saying that the chunk usually, if it's a pre-prepared text, sometimes the speaker can speak for like without a pause for like 23 words. You know, that's the length of a chunk. And that is quite a maximum for a pre-prepared speech, whereas it's less than 9 or 7 to 9 words for an ad-lib or for, when you are speaking with impromptu. In other words, when you are not preparing as a speaker. So you see this kind of problem that the simultaneous interpreters have got, which is that the chunk is much longer in the pre-prepared speech, and therefore it's more challenging for the interpreter. And that's why when compared to the ad-lib or the impromptu, when somebody is actually being asked about their opinion about something, not really reading a text which they have already prepared beforehand. And the interesting thing about this pre-prepared texts is you find it's very packed in terms of syntax. It's quite really complex syntax as well. Whereas if you are interpreting for an ad-lib, for an impromptu answer without reading from a paper, as some of the speakers will do, then you are in a more relaxed way and the pace will be less, and then there is less pressure on you as an interpreter in order to actually perform well in this kind of chunking. There is also another element of time lagging, which is when you are actually behind the speaker. Now, sometimes, according to Chernov, between 1.9 of a second to 6 seconds can actually be lagging behind. Now, why do the interpreter lags behind the speaker? It's because the fact that you are waiting to understand the sense. Here again, I'm emphasizing the word sense. You are trying to get sense, to make sense of what the speaker is saying, and not looking for just words and meaning of words. Of course, certain words are important, of course, to know their meanings. But of course, you are looking at their meanings within the actual cognitive factors that are more important for you when you are chunking here. And then there is also the simultaneity of the speaker. Now, of course, here you got simultaneously you are speaking at the same time as the speaker. Sometimes some scholars think that there is no simultaneity at all. Simultaneity is actually happening, but it's relative. It's not, you're not actually at the same time speaking. You are actually delayed. There is this kind of a little bit of behind. You are a little bit behind in terms of your listening from speaking. You know, you are, in fact, the simultaneity of listening and speaking. There is a doubt about it, that it is not happening at the same time. And it's not. There is a little bit of a lagging behind, which is 1.9 to 6 seconds at times, depending on that. Now, on top of that, there are elements which Chernov talks about, which are relating to inferences. Inferences are actually really very, very important with regards to Chernov. But of course, he's talking about that you have to comprehend. Comprehension is important when you are comprehending part of the message as a hearer, as an interpreter first. Where he says comprehension begins from the moment the hearer is able to make an inference from the part of the message already communicated through her perception or his perception, that is the interpreter's perception, of the incoming semantic components. Semantic components which are relating, and these semantic components are related to sense here, and they are related to these senses. Now, of course, the inferences themselves are divided according to Chernov to linguistic one, and there is also the cognitive one, which is in the long memory or the thesaurus of the world of the topic that you are looking at, and the situational context as well, which is the dialectic and situational inferences. These are the three inferences that you have to be familiar with as an interpreter, that will help you in interpreting as well for him. And on top of that, there is the element of pragmatic inference, which is the social role of the speaker, and what is the speaker's what is his position, and when he's speaking. These are quite important in the semantic structure, and these are relating to the reference. They are relating to some elements of evaluation, because you've got positive and negative. Perhaps there are negative evaluation using some destructive words, damaging, negative adjectives, or it can be positive, very promising, very successful. This is the evaluative element that's happening while they are speaking. And of course, the dialectics are just as important there. It's not only these ones that are the inferences, and these are relating to the semantic structure, which we are actually really more important for us as interpreters. These are on the one side, which we need to be aware of them, which we need to know about their semantic structure of the discourse. But there are also factors that are to do with the situation. Situational factors are, according to Chernov, which is very rightly saying that, and they are the factor of the speaker, who is speaking, the factor of the theme, what is he talking about? Also, the factor of the actual event, what's the event about, and in what connection is he speaking? And also there is also the element of the audience, who is he addressing? And also the place, the forum where he is talking, and the time, and then of course the purpose of the communication. What is he aiming at? Because he's got, and of course there is a motive behind what he's, on why is he saying that. So there's no, it's not really just purely information that the speaker is giving in simultaneous interpreting. No, of course there is also that element of judgmental element, evaluative judgment going on. He's going to actually have a purpose. There is why. There is a motive behind what he's saying. There is also the convincing part of it. So in other words, it's not only information, it's persuasiveness. It's trying to persuade you into doing something in particular. I think I've just covered quite a bit now about interpreting here, which I will stop here, and then I'll give you in the next video some more details about theme and rime and how they are linked together in simultaneous interpreting and how important they are along with subject and predicate in a sentence as well.